Hi guys, good day to everyone on my TikTok page. My topic this morning is to break the cycle of passed on trauma to future generations. Before I talk about this topic, I would like to talk about genetics and how genetics can be passed on to your children. Genetics can be classified as the study of the makeup of an individual. When we are studying the makeup of an individual, we are studying basically the physical and the behavioral characteristics, traits of this individual. Now, in genetics, there are DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, there are sex chromosomes. Within the sex chromosomes, there are the X and the Y, which classify male. And there are also the XX, which classifies females. Now, we also have regular chromosomes, which have 23. Within these chromosomes, there have 46 organized genes. Okay? Also in genetics, there are something called genomes. They are also called something called alleles, genotype, and phenotype. Phenotype can be classified as hair color or hormones. Genotype, on the other hand, there are three examples of genotype. The first example of genotype is homozygous dominant. Now, in the homozygous dominance, there are two large B's. There are two large B in the homozygous dominance. And these two B's is classified as brown eyes. So, genetically, you can inherit brown eyes or blue eyes from your parent. How can you inherit them? Simply by I explaining these terms. Okay? So, genotype, there are three examples. The first example of genotype is homozygous dominance. Homozygous dominance are an organism which has two alleles as a gene. Okay, it has two alleles as its genes and is basically two of the brown genes. The heterozygous dominant, on the other hand, is not like the homozygous dominant. The heterozygous dominant, on the other hand, there is a large B and a small b, and this classified as one parent has the brown eye, because the large B is always classified as the brown eyes. The smaller b, on the other hand, is always classified as blue eyes. So in the heterozygous dominant, an organism that has two different alleles as a gene. So basically, one parent has brown eyes, the other parent has blue eyes. In this case, the child most likely will come out with brown eyes, because brown eyes is always dominant over the recessive. Blue eyes is the recessive. Brown eyes is always dominant over the blue eyes. Now, besides that, the third genotype is called homozygous recessive. And in homozygous recessive is an organism with two recessive alleles as a gene. Okay, and those and that will be basically it will be two small b's. You remember what I said earlier? What I said earlier is the two small b is always going to be recessive. It's always going to be blue eyes. Okay, so in the homozygous dominance, is always going to be blue eyes. So if both parents has blue eyes, the child is going to come out with blue eyes. Okay, so genetically, children can have they can inherit eye color, hair color, and height from their parents. Okay, so phenotype is hair color and height. You can inherit genetically from your parents. Genotype, on the other hand, you can inherit eye color from your parents. So if one parent has brown eyes and the other parent has blue eyes, that is called heterozygous dominant. Where that is concerned, most likely the child still is going to come out with brown eyes, because the brown eye is always dominant over the recessive, which is called the blue eyes. Okay, so genetically you can inherit hair color, eye color genetically from your parents. Okay, besides inheriting eye color and height from your parents, you can also inherit trauma from your parents through epigenetics. Okay, and some of you all will be like, how will I experience, how is that possible? Well, you can inherit trauma through epigenetics. Okay, so epigenetics is basically when you inherit biological chemicals. Okay, so I'm going to break it down like that. Behavior, the environment changes. Okay, so where the environment is concerned, where behavior are concerned, it can change, it can alter expressions, meaning that the way that you act, it can affect the way that genes work. Okay, so genetically, biologically, you can inherit trauma from your parents through epigenetics, which is called intergenerational trauma. Okay, some parents have maladaptive disorder. Now, in these maladaptive disorder, they can create a traumatizing environment for their children, which are biopsychosocial mechanism perpetuating trauma. Okay, in biopsychosocial, it is biological, psychological, and social factors. Okay, all of these are within everyone. Now, within this biopsychosocial mechanism, they can perpetuate trauma. When I say perpetuate, meaning that the way that you act, you are spewing out trauma. Some people are hurt and they have not yet dealt with it. Okay, how can you stop these passed on trauma? You first have to confront these internalized trauma. You have to confront your internalized trauma. You have to deal with it. Okay, there are different types of trauma. There are mental trauma, acute trauma, chronic trauma, complex trauma, and physical trauma. Okay, some people have mental trauma, PTSD. A lot of veterans, when they come back from the war, lots of them are diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of them have to go through therapy. They have to go through seeking therapeutic help. We as regular individuals, we can experience post-traumatic stress disorder as well. Sometimes we encounter or experience some form of traumatic experience. Whether some of us perhaps maybe SA, sexually assaulted, DV, domestic violence. These are traumatic experiences. Sometimes we experience or encounter this in our early childhood years. And experiencing trauma at an early childhood years can affect you when you become an adult. So sometimes when you see certain people acting a certain way, sometimes they have encountered or experienced some form of trauma, and they have not yet confronted that trauma. They have not yet dealt with that trauma. Okay, sometimes passed on trauma from generations. Okay, from generation to generation. And we as individuals, we need to confront them. We need to deal with them. And how do you deal with this trauma? What do you do with it? Do you just put it there to thaw out, to sit down, relax? Trauma, you just stay right here, let me live my best life? No, you deal with it. You go through therapy. A lot of people don't believe in therapy. Some people believe that the therapy is colonized therapy. The therapy needs to be decolonized. The therapy is not for black people. Black people don't need therapy. We are strong. We are resilient. We don't need therapy. The therapy is the colonizer therapy. It needs to be decolonized. Black people do need therapy, and not all therapy are the colonizer therapy. Not all therapy. There are psychologists or psychiatrists out there who can, black psychologists and psychiatrists who can have a session with you, and they don't have to speak about the colonizer. They don't have to go with that ideology or that rhetoric. So you as the individual, you can do your research and choose who you would like to, which therapist you would like to have. You have the right to do that. You don't have to choose a therapist where you will feel very uncomfortable. No. So if you think that if you're a person of a melanin skin tone and you feel like you want to talk with a black person, that's your choice, and that's okay. If you want to do stereotypes, that's on you. But not all therapy are the colonizer therapy. And I don't believe that therapy needs to be decolonized. That's just my take. Okay? So nevertheless, the reason why I want to speak about this, because a lot of people are ignorant. They are ignorant of the fact that people need therapy. They need therapy. When I look at my country of birth, the statistics of crime is high. It's very, very high. And when you look at the people who are committing these crimes, it's a very young people. They are around the ages of 17 to 27 average. Okay? And then we will ask ourselves the question, why are these young people committing crime? My reply to this question will be, is the homes that these children being raised in. They would be nurtured in very unhealthy homes. Probably these teenagers, they experience some form of traumatic experiences. Probably they need to seek therapeutic help. And some people will rebuttal me and say, well, you know what? I don't believe some of these children, they can be raised in healthy homes and they still can be, they still will commit crimes or crime-like act. And I could somewhat agree with that. But in a higher percentage, I believe that a lot of these children who are committing crime, they are being raised in very toxic and unhealthy environments. I'm not going to deflect and deny the fact that environment or socializing with the wrong crowd can influence an individual. A few days ago, I speak about de-individuation, which is basically some children, they may be in groups. And when they are in this group, they lose their self-awareness. They do things, they commit crime-like acts. And they will only commit that only when they are in groups. When they are at home with their family members, they will not think like that. They will not lose their self-awareness. So I'm not going to deny the fact that groups, being involved in groups, can play a major part of our children committing these crimes or crime-like acts, perhaps. But I think that society, a lot of people, when we say society, it takes the community to help raise the child. I remember that was like, that was a thing back in the old time days. But a lot of people are against me. They are like, you know what, Melissa? Yes, it takes the community to raise a child. But when you try to talk to children of today's era, they have an attitude. They're going to curse you out. A lot of people will tell me that. But yet again, it goes back to the household. It goes back to the parents. The parents are responsible. The parents need to take accountability. How did you raise that child? Did you raise that child in a healthy environment? So of course, the question will be asked, why are children committing crime? When I look at my country of birth, there are a lot of children committing crime. There are a lot of teens committing crime. When I look here in the US, a few months ago, a 6-year-old child picked up a pew-pew and went to the school and pew-pew. And then we will ask ourselves, why would a 6-year-old child pick up a pew-pew? A lot of factors can contribute to that. I remember last night I was on this live panel. I joined this panel, and this was a topic of discussion. And I give my take. A lot of factors can contribute and influence our children. What are these factors that can influence our children to commit crime or crime-like act? I believe social media is a part. I believe music is a factor. Social media is a factor. Music is a factor. The environment is a factor. Peer pressure is a factor. We have different factors that can contribute to children committing crime-like acts. And I think we as a society should make intervention. We should make intervention. We should talk and commune with our young people. And I understand that you will say, my neighbor child is not my responsibility. Well, back in the old time days, the saying was, it takes a community to raise a child. And if you feel like you don't want to be a part of that, that's on you. But sometimes you may see your neighbor child doing something wrong. It shouldn't take nothing out of you to contact your neighbor and let him or her know that you saw their child doing something. You saw their child doing something illegal. Okay? So my advice to each and every one of you all, let's stop passing on trauma to the future generation. Let's deal with our internalized trauma. Confront the trauma. Seek therapeutic help and break the cycle. Break the cycle of trauma being passed on through generation to generation. Let's break the cycle now. Let's raise our children with the fundamental values of morals. Let's raise them the right way. Okay? And if we see our neighbor child is doing something illegal or unusual, contact the neighbor. But let's stop the cycle of trauma being passed on to generation. Let's stop it now. Let's break the cycle now, today. Okay? So I thank you, each and every one of you all, for listening to my lecture today. Okay? Breaking intergenerational trauma. And understanding that not only genetics of eye color or hair or height can be passed on genetically to your children, but also biologically, epigenetics, trauma can be passed on as well. So you guys have a beautiful day, and thank you, and bye.